And while the euphoria of the Abraham Accords still reigns, a setback or potential setback to Israel-UAE relations today, an Israeli woman, Fida Kiwan, was sentenced to death Tuesday in Dubai after she was convicted of possessing half a kilogram of cocaine. Kiwan, a 43-year-old Haifa resident who owns a photography studio, reportedly came to Dubai for work at the invitation of a Palestinian acquaintance there about a year ago. She was arrested a short while later on March 2021 after a search of her apartment turned up the drugs. A statement coming out of the UAE says the defendant does not have the right to receive any reduction in punishment, but while the UAE is known for its strict anti-drug laws, death sentences are not often, or not always rather, thoroughly enforced. Her family is saying that she is currently on a hunger strike and is asking the Israeli Prime Minister and President to intervene. And to discuss it further, I'm now joined by Mr. Anik Kaufman, defense counsel and former prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. Mr. Kaufman, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. So I would like to start by asking, experts here in Israel are saying that they expect the sentence to be reduced to a long prison term upon appeal instead of this death sentence. What are you thinking about this prediction that at this point in time, again, contradicts what we're hearing from the UAE?
Well, I think that the prediction is in fact correct, first of all. Although the death penalty does exist on the statute books, it's been very rarely carried out, and even then in only the most egregious of cases. I think the last example was back in 2017, and that was a case of murder and rape. I should say that Fida Kiwan is not the only Israeli who's currently in custody on drugs charges in the United Arab Emirates. There's also another individual, citizen from Israel, Arab citizen, Khalil Dasuki, who I'm actually involved in his case, and he has been charged with possession of half a ton of cocaine, not half a kilogram.
So, Mr. Kaufman, the Israeli Foreign Ministry is saying that the case is known and that they're handling it through the consular services and the representatives there in the Emirates. But legally speaking, what can a foreign country do in such a case? There's a clear-cut verdict here.
Yeah. The State of Israel will never get involved substantively in the actual legal process. Obviously, if there is a threat of carrying out the death penalty, then one would expect that the President of the State of Israel, has been done in other cases, would write to the head of state in the United Arab Emirates and request clemency. And I think that that's what would happen in this case. It's been done in the past. I've had a previous case involving an Israeli Arab citizen in Egypt, Muad Zukhalka. And in that case, the President of the State of Israel, Reuven Rivlin, wrote to the President of Egypt and requested clemency.
Well, Israeli media is quoting Fida's family members, criticizing the government for not really helping her in the same manner or with the same drive, if you will, as the Benjamin Netanyahu-led government intervened in the case, or rather the release of Israeli citizen Nama Yisrael from a Moscow prison over drug possession, not cocaine. It was a lighter charge, if you will. Is it the same situation?
Well, I'm not sure it's really the same situation. I mean, you really can't compare the possession of a few grams of cannabis to alleged possession, I must say, of half a kilogram of cocaine. And obviously there were a certain amount of political considerations involved in the case of Nama Yisrael. Yisrael.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen the results of that in any event. So I don't think you can compare the two cases at all.
Well, you've alluded to that earlier in our conversation, Mr. Kaufman, that Israel will not be too eager to risk its relations with the UAE over this issue. But do you think it will have sort of an impact on relations, judging by past instances?
No, I don't think so. Once again, I think that Israel will be not too keen to get involved and start criticizing the system of law in the United Arab Emirates and how they apply their criminal law. However, I think if worst comes to worst and the appeals court rejects the appeal which has been filed by the lawyer of Fida, then I can anticipate that there will be an application on behalf of the state for clemency. But there will be no attempt made to intervene and argue that the trial that was afforded was an unfair trial.